And now to our first conversation. It's election season and Nigerian presidential aspirants have started releasing economic plans to woo voters for 2023 general elections. Here on Business Morning, we'll be drilling down on these plans to know the how. And for the first time in the series, we'll be looking at the Bola Ahmed Tinubu action plan called Renewed Hope 2023. Join us now is Ajuri Ngalale, Assistant Principal Spokesperson, Tinubu Presidential Campaign Organization. Join us from our Abuja studio. Great to have you on the program.
Good morning to you, my brother, and good morning to our esteemed viewers.
Good morning. So let's get to it now. Looking at the document, it says, our economy has been designed to be import-based, especially, importing finished products. So what is the plan to turn Nigeria into a more export-based economy, and exporting more finished goods instead of raw materials?
This is really a very critical component of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's plan for the future of the Nigerian economy, is how do we ensure now that our domestic manufacturers are encouraged to not only massively employ our urban youth, because we have a plan for urban youth employment as well as rural youth employment. I'll get into rural youth employment in a minute. But we recognize that the urban youth unemployment problem is a major one, and one of the ways in which we're going to address that, to your question, is by enhancing domestic manufacturing. Now, there's going to be a series of measures to ensure that we can do so. Number one, we are going to immediately we're going to lower import tariffs on semi-finished products and goods that our domestic manufacturers require in order to be able to produce the items that Nigerians will be using from within the country. That's number one. Number two is we're going to be providing tax incentives, tax rebates and credits to domestic manufacturers, for example, for hiring a certain percentage of their workforce from the unemployed urban youth population. Also, our focus is, like you mentioned, we're not looking just at raw materials. We're looking at how to, kind of transform our raw material base across the country into finished materials. And this goes into the industrialization plan. What we're going to be doing is we're going to create hubs, some local major and minor hubs within all of the 6 geopolitical zones that take advantage of the comparative advantages that each of the zones hold as it relates to the raw materials within their various jurisdictions. So, for example, in the Southwest, we're going to be taking advantage of the high-quality sand deposits there to create a glass production industry that is large-scale, that can employ many Nigerians and produce the products that up until now we've been importing in terms of glass products. And obviously that goes to housing, obviously with glass windows, that goes to automobile manufacturing with glass on the cars, et cetera, et cetera. It's a huge multiplying opportunity. Then in addition to that, we recognize that we have quality clay deposits, high quantity clay deposits in the Southwest that we can use to create a ceramics and dish making industry as well. So that's an opportunity in the Southwest. In the North Central, the hub is going to be centered around what the wealth we have in solid minerals. All sorts of various solid minerals. Nigerians are well familiar with what we have there in terms of iron ore deposits and many others that we can now refine, not just exploit, which is level 1 primarily, but on the secondary be able to refine and process that into finished jewelry, etc. That's going to be a major industrial opportunity in the North Central. In the Northeast and Northwest, obviously you have massive gold deposits in the Northwest, but we really want to focus in on textiles. We recognize that in the 1980s, the textile industry in this country was the second largest employer of labor after the federal government then. We want to ensure that we bring back textiles in a concerted, intentional way. That's part of the industrial plan for the Northwest and Northeast. And then in the South, South, and Southeast, we're going to be focusing like a laser on the production of the leather making industry in the Southeast, rubber production, and what we can do in terms of manufacturing tires, etc., but also majorly it's going to be based on oil and gas logistics, manufacturing drilling platforms, manufacturing pipe systems, manufacturing all of those multi-billion-dollar supplement parts that are required in the oil and gas industry, as against a situation where we've been importing these things from Japan and South Korea, paying out billions of dollars in the process. We believe that we can create national oil and gas parks in this country, which had even started already under President Muhammadu Buhari, that we can see that to a conclusion and expand on that. So we have a very clear and comprehensive plan of how we can take advantage of the comparative advantages resident within our zones to be able to take the focus off of raw materials exploitation and look at how we're going to process these things into foreign exchange earning commodities for international export. That's something that we're very excited about.
Yeah, quite a big plans, but I'm sure there are going to be funding issues with all this. Because I saw on page 14 there, it says there will be a review of the federal budgetary methodology that's taking out the benchmarks like oil price and exchange rate. First of all, why remove the benchmarks?
Thank you very much. So for us, it's very clear in our analysis that benchmarking we have to reform our federal budgeting process. And a major part of that is going to be delinking the federal budgeting process from the peg that we've always predicated our federal budgets on, which is the dollar value of the international oil price. We believe that instead of pegging it on that we should peg our federal budgeting on in anticipated government expenditure. Obviously, that is not some sort of license to endlessly spend, because we're also very clear within our manifesto. His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, especially as a professional accountant, clearly has stated that he's going to impose an inflationary spending ceiling to ensure that we do not excessively spend to the point where we would now worsen what is already a troubling global inflation problem. So that's important. What we don't want to do is we don't want to constrain domestic spending to the vagaries of some of the international, kind of variations that take place as it relates to, the fluctuation in energy prices and the like. We want to make sure that we empower the Naira to be able to get things done that the Naira can get done, and then use our foreign exchange on the things that are absolutely required to be expended on with foreign exchange. So that's the idea. We believe that in doing so, not only can we strengthen the Naira by making primary its function within our economy, but we also believe that that's going to provide the fiscal latitude and space to make the required investments we need to make in housing construction, manufacturing, agriculture development, and the like.
But taking out the oil benchmark, because when you set the oil benchmark there, you create space, for fluctuations, and when there's a price differential to the upside, you're able to remit some of that to the excess crude account. So what happens to the excess crude account?
Well, first of all, I think it's very clear to many Nigerians that we need greater scrutiny and even greater transparency around the functioning of the excess crude account. I think that that's a process that still requires formalization with the National Assembly. But moreover, that in no way, shape, or form undermines our ability to save and put away for when oil and gas kind of picks up and takes up its right of place within our economic space. Look, let's be clear about something. Within our plan, we make quite primary the development of the oil and gas sector, even though we're focused on diversifying into manufacturing, housing, construction, in agriculture, in an even deeper way than what President Muhammadu Buhari had already achieved. We are also focused on ensuring that by 2027, that would be the end of the first term of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we would have raised oil production in the country from the current, if all is normal, once we're deal with the crude oil theft, hopefully by the end of December, we'll get back to about 1.8 million barrels per day. We want to take that up from 1.8 to 2.6 million barrels per day, and then 4 million barrels per day by 2030. That's in the manifesto. So we are adamant about maximizing the revenue generation from the oil and gas sector, certainly, and there will be a mechanism for savings. As you well know, we've made significant investments in the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. That is one vehicle through which we intend to continue to, really wisely invest our oil windfalls. But we really do need to formalize the operation of the excess crude account in a way that is clear to all Nigerians. Because as it is right now, we recognize that it has not been finite. The conclusion on some of those formal processes has not been met yet. But at the same time, we've tried to be open with Nigerians through the National Economic Council. Anytime that there's a removal of funds or an expenditure from that account, we've always told Nigerians, this is what we're spending on, this is how much, and this is where it's going. But we recognize that there's work to do with the National Assembly, and we're going to do it.
All right. You talk about boosting oil output to about 4 million barrels per day, and I know COP27 is on right now, and we're all making pledges out there about net zero. So how do you balance oil output and also moving away from dirtier fuels?
And this is a truly important question. So within our manifesto, we've really doubled down on President Muhammadu Buhari's position that we are a gas country. We're a gas nation. We're a nation that is much more endowed with gas resources than even the oil resources that we've long been relying on. And so it is part of the roadmap of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to see to a conclusion all of the major gas projects in the country. We recognize that this is a relatively clean fuel. This is something that has added very little to the global emissions problem. This has been recognized by almost everybody in the international community. So we're focused on those pipeline networks, the Ajaokuta to Kaduna to Kano gas pipeline that His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has put in place and will be completed by the end of his administration. We're going to see to the completion of the Trans-Saharan Nigerian gas pipeline, which will now end at Kano, which will start at Kano, go through Niger all the way through the Sahara into the Algerian pipeline system to take Nigerian gas out of the Niger Delta into Western Europe, earning billions of dollars for the Nigerian economy in the process. And we're also going to see to the completion also of the extension of the new Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline that's going to be going through the Atlantic Ocean all the way across several West African nations all the way up into Spain. So you're going to have two major international export gas pipelines for really what is going to be the transformation of the Nigerian economy. But to your question about how to balance the global emissions issue with, or the kind of road to net zero with maximizing the revenue impact in the sector, it comes back to ensuring that we do the things we need to do in terms of eliminating gas flaring on our oil production sites, which is something that we're well on the way of doing. We've been able to cut down significantly on that over the course of the last 6-7 years. We're going to continue on that until it's done. I believe by 2025, we would have fully eliminated gas flaring on all of our oil production sites. It's even a component part of the Petroleum Industry Act, which Mr. President signed into law. So we're certainly on course there, but we want to ensure that while our oil and gas resources are viable in the international export market, that we take maximum advantage of it in order to use that capital to effectively diversify into our other major sectors as it relates to manufacturing, the industrial hubs with solid minerals production and refinement, and all of the other things I've mentioned around glass, ceramics, plastics, and so many other petrochemical industries that we're going to be offshooting into.
Before I let you go, unemployment rate now 33%. What are the plans for jobs?
And this is fundamental. I mentioned the issue of urban youth employment through the incentivization of domestic industry and the disincentivization of imports. But on the other hand, when we talk about the rural youth, a major component is going to be our mass land clearing exercise. His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has committed to Nigerians in this manifesto that by the end of his first term in office in 2027, he would have taken the current percentage of arable land in this country under cultivation that basically we're producing, agricultural produce on. Of 35% of all arable land today is under cultivation. He's going to take that to 65% by 2027. That's going to involve millions of rural youth being employed to massively clear lands across the country to create new bread baskets. That's number one. That's going to obviously increase the population of employed. It's going to increase the population of those with bank accounts, and it's going to increase the population of those paying taxes to the federal government and state governments. In addition to that, and this is very fundamental, is we're establishing a new consumer credit system in this country. This is historic. What it involves effectively is a situation where we know Nigerians are being forced to come up with 1 year's rent in advance. They're forced to come up with the full house payment for a house in advance, full car payment for a car in advance. These things incentivize corruption. We recognize that we can proactively deal with corruption if we can create a consumer credit system that would enable Nigerians to, within their legitimate earnings, afford mortgage payments on a house, afford lease-to-own payments on a car, and afford large-scale domestic appliances like freezers and fridges. Now, how we're going to do that, and this is very critical, there's a how to this. We're not just making pie-in-the-sky promises. How this is going to work is, first of all, we are going to, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, create an incentive program with the domestic money banks in the country to ensure that they are providing a bulk quantum of all of their lending to the real sector, to the low-income Nigerian consumer and to the middle-income Nigerian consumer, those on a monthly salary of 100,000 naira, 500,000 naira a month, to ensure that they're lending to them. Now, how this is going to work is at the first level in housing, we're going to work with the National Assembly to reform the Land Use Act to standardize all of the timelines and processes around land acquisition, obtaining your C of O from the state governments and all of that, so that developers will have equal time frames and equal process no matter where they're accessing land in the country. The second level is we're going to give tax credits and rebates to developers in the country to devote their developments to social housing for poor and middle-income Nigerians. And then, of course, we're incentivizing the banks to lend, mortgage lending to the Nigerian consumer to affordably pay for mortgages.
All right, so much to unpack.
Sorry about that.
So much to unpack there, but we've run out of time. There's so much you had to say there, and obviously we'll be looking forward to all of these plans, and hopefully these plans, are stuck to. Thank you so much. That was Ajuri Ngalale, Assistant Principal Spokesperson, Tinubu Presidential Campaign Organization. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.